You bought a house and you can afford to take this trip. So I don't know if people getting into real estate understand that that's so important, right? But what do you mean by the words the long game? What sort of car is it?
It's a Porsche GT3.
Their son's got this great job, and it's probably a very well-paying job for a young fella at 24, and he wants to give it all up and be a real estate agent, which is commission only. Well, here we are. Ben, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks, Andrew. Happy to be here.
So you and I were having a chat like last week, and I was thinking about what to call this. This is our first go, and you're the guinea pig, right? We talked about it.
Choose me for that.
And I just thought about capturing energy, and really where I want to come from is capture the energy of people. And I thought, well, I'll make a list of people that have got energy, and thankfully you've got energy and you're up for it. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're keen to see where it ends up.
Let's see where it goes. Yeah. So thanks, Ben. So just for people listening, so Ben Buchanan is a real estate agent. You're 28. You started as a real estate agent 4 years ago, so quite young. And in Auckland, in the central west area of Auckland, so Grayland, Ponsonby, Westmere, Point Chevalier, which is massively competitive, like most real estate is probably across the world, very competitive. But I think particularly in New Zealand, where we're quite, conservative really. It's harder, I think, for young people. So, but you've done quite well, Ben, and I really wanted to have a discussion with you about that, and interested to know, because I'm sure there are other people, young people potentially in real estate, that are thinking about getting into it, but might be discouraged. How did you get here? How did you get to real estate?
Well, I suppose everyone in life has that little bit of interest about them, what it actually is real estate and how do I do it. And I was actually originally an aircraft engineer for New Zealand coming out of school. I love the job and that, but I knew that one day I wanted to work for myself. And I knew that I did have a lot of energy, and I potentially would, channel that energy into something where I could excel. And real estate offers that. It offers you that the ability, the platform to do so, and it offers you the flexibility as well, which I really enjoy. So,
aircraft engineer on the ground, right? So not a flying engineer.
Not a flying engineer.
Did you have a diploma for that, or?
Yeah, it is. It's you do a year course within New Zealand, and then a traineeship, which I completed and became a qualified aircraft engineer. So a bit of a change for me.
So I'm just trying to think of this from your parents' point of view. So their son's got this great job, and he's working for Air New Zealand, New Zealand's national airline, and it's probably a very well-paying job for a young fella at 24. And he wants to give it all up and be a real estate agent, which is commission only.
Yeah, I suppose there's a bit of that, but I mean, my parents are always going to support me for whatever I do. And I'm a big believer myself that, it's still part of my journey. Everyone in life has a journey, right? And it just happens that I started that way. And it's funny because even though they are quite different industries, I find the way I thought as an engineer, sometimes in real estate, I do think the same way when it comes to dealing with different people and troubleshooting different things, getting a deal together, patience, all those sort of things.
Wow. So what were your first steps like? Okay, so right, I'm going to give this real estate a go. How do you start? What sort of happens?
Well, obviously you got to do your license. So I did my license through the Open Polytechnic, which is all online. I managed to get through that quite quickly, and then it sort of became quite real.
How long is that course, though?
I think it took me just under 6 months potentially to finish.
That's full time, is it?
Yeah. Well, you do it online, so it's I mean, the way I did it was a full-time basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And after 6 months, and then you've got to choose where you're going to go.
That's the next big step. It becomes quite real, right? And then you got to start looking at different offices and different teams and different managers, and obviously there's lots of real estate companies. So I sort of worked out where I wanted to be, and I suppose a bit of influence was we had family friends that were in real estate.
Okay.
And growing up around Mount Eda and Epsom, I had always seen Barfoot and Thompson. I was always sort of curious, saw their blue signs around and wondered, what the company is and what they could offer.
So you grew up in that area, Mount Eden, was it Epsom sort of stuff?
Yep.
Yeah. And you ended up in Grey Lynn. So how did that happen?
Well, that was an interesting story. So I I knew the Mount Eden area, and I actually had an apartment that I lived in on Mount Eden Road. And so naturally, once I had my license, I actually went to the Mount Eden office and asked for a job. And it was Ian Gray working there, who was a manager, had been there for many years, and he didn't tend to take rookies on.
Okay.
So rookie's like a new agent, right?
Yeah.
But he did say that because I knew some people in the office and had a couple of references, that he would take me on. However, yourself, Andrew Cosgrove, was also looking at employing an associate for Team Matt and Ryan in the Grayland office.
Right.
So I left that office and called you from the car.
Right, yeah, okay. So how did you find out about Matt and Ryan wanting an associate?
Ian from Mount Eden, so the manager of the Mount Eden office had mentioned it to me.
Right.
That he knew that Matt and Ryan, who were the top team in Grayland, were looking for a associate to help them, and I thought that it could be the dream start for me.
So then you rang me up, and then I met you, and then you sat down with Matt and Ryan. Do you think that for a young person that's an important way to start, or a good way to start? Is it the only way to start?
Yeah, I do believe that it's the dream way to start, because I'm sure you can make it on your own. You can do it by yourself, but it does give you a platform to work under, and you also learn all the good habits that they've learned from.
Right.
I believe they were in the industry for just over a decade when I met them.
Right.
So they've had that exposure, and they have so much industry knowledge that you sort of learn off that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you were doing that with them, what sort of work were you doing? I mean, there's two sides to real estate, isn't there? There's listing houses, actually, appraising them, listing them, and there's also working with buyers. So how did you work there? Yeah,
so the first sort of year, I suppose, was mainly working with their buyers. So the guts of it is that they would have an open home and then an auction, and you'd have up to 6 or 7 bidders at that auction, but only one person would get it. So I would meet up with the underbidder or the other 5 people and basically assist them into a house. And that became basically my first year in real estate, was working with buyers. I believe about a year and a half in, I managed to secure my first listing, which was pretty exciting.
So that is exciting, and I want to get to that, your first listing. But you make it sound sort of easy. I know there's a lot of young people that get into real estate, and some may be fortunate to work with a great team, some may not.
Yeah.
But what was different with you that you managed to score some points?
Look, I mean, there's no denying it's hard work. I am very, very driven. So I sort of bring the whole real estate thing back to the way I think about life and the way that I train. So I love doing endurance events, ultra marathons, Ironmans, long runs, lots of marathons, and just I like to challenge myself every single day in what I do. So I like to think that I channel my energy that I have into real estate, and that sort of made a difference.
Right. So ultramarathon, how many Ks is an ultramarathon?
That one was a 50K. So an ultramarathon is a run that is longer than a marathon. So as soon as you go over 42.2, it's an ultra.
So I'm listening to this podcast and I don't do ultramarathons. And is real estate not for me?
Not at all. I mean, what I'm sort of comparing it to is just my mindset and how, you do have to have a goal. You do need to be determined. And you sort of need to have, you've really got to have your why. Why am I doing this?
Okay.
And I feel like I managed to work that out, as well as knowing I've got a lot of energy to channel into it. To succeed.
So here's one I'll throw at you. What is Ben Buchanan's why?
My why is basically just to be the best version of myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
personal best, PB.
Personal best. And
right.
then whether that's in sports or my endurance or real estate, doesn't matter as long as, I get better, even just 1% every single day.
Wow.
And it becomes that sort of go one more mindset.
Where did that come from? You had that mindset before you even got into real estate. Before you turned 24, you had that mindset. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm going to say I sort of became a bit more woken to it, around 23, 24.
Any idea where that came from?
It does. It comes from running. It really does.
Okay.
Just running and wanting to challenge yourself. and wondering what else is out there,
Okay.
not just settling for, something and
Right.
just, pushing myself to the absolute max.
So can you remember when you started running?
Around in my really early 20s, so maybe 21, 22.
You just thought you'd go for a run and
Yeah.
Can you remember those first runs?
Well, I used to be really into the gym and lifting weights and,
Okay.
taking protein shakes and, that sort of trend. But one day I just said, hey, what if I ran around the block after the workout?
Okay.
And I loved how I felt. So it became doing a gym workout, then running around the block twice.
Okay.
And then it became, okay, maybe I won't go to the gym. Maybe I'll go for a run instead. And I
Right.
started with a 3K run, build up to a 5, and then I was doing 10s. And then I signed up for my first half marathon.
Right.
So, I'm a big believer in booking something in so that
Yep.
you have to do it. So
You're
it's
right.
locked in, so putting a deadline on something.
Yes.
To the half marathon and then marathons and then ultras and the Ironman has been a big part of it as well. So
And do you think this has something that's helped your success in real estate?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it really has. Like being a triathlete now, I do differ between swimming, biking and running. I'll always do something every day.
Right.
But for I think it was about for a year and a half, I was just running 10K every single day. And I like that analogy of eating the frog, I believe. So eating the frog in the morning is do your hardest tasks first.
Yeah.
So, your average person wakes up, gets out of bed tired, tries to find a coffee, they're not necessarily happy.
Right.
Whereas I often don't want to get up, but sometimes I do.
Yep.
And I'll do a 10K run, get back, the frog's been eaten, I suppose you could say, and I'm ready to go about my day and, do other hard things which other people could find, hard or impossible become a little bit easier because I've done that hard thing already.
So just on that, so you talk about eating a frog. Do you still find it unpleasant? Like eating a frog is not a pleasant experience, right? So when you're getting it, is it actually unpleasant when you're doing it, or?
It's just a complete day by day, right? It's like
Right.
anything in life. You have your good days and you have your bad days. Some days it's really hard. I mean, these
Yeah.
colder mornings certainly aren't helping.
Right. Yeah, middle of winter in Auckland here.
Yeah, you have to run with gloves on. But I mean, some days, the sun's shining and you're feeling good, or you go with a friend or something, then that makes it a lot easier.
So it's funny. I've been in real estate 20 years myself, but and there's a lot of frogs, right? There's a lot of frogs
A
doing.
lot of frogs.
Well, what time do you get up in the morning typically?
Normally around 5 or 6.
So many of us would say, you know what, it's cold, I'll turn over and sleep in. What is it that gets you out of bed at that point?
I have stuff to do, right? I need to start my day that early. And I suppose it comes down to if I am busy, then sometimes that 5 to 6 o'clock in the morning can actually be the time where I need to think about stuff and plan stuff.
And are you doing that while you're running?
Often, yes,
Right.
but sometimes not. No, it depends. It's a day-by-day thing for me.
So you're saying, okay, so I'm in bed, it's really cold, it's dark, it's raining, but the thought of I need to have something to do, that's what gets you out of bed.
Yeah, it does. I think also the thought of I've thought about it and now I'm not going to do it. So that's quite a big thing
Okay.
for me.
Right.
So knowing that,
Have you thought about it the night before you go to bed?
Oh yeah, of course.
You've
But-
planned it before.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's even worse. Like if I've thought about doing something and then everyone's got that voice in their head that goes, "Oh, don't do it, right? Do it tomorrow." It's like no, just eat the frog, get out there in the rain. If it's a rainy morning, if it's a cold morning, just get it done. And then I find that I'm set up for the rest of the day.
So you've been in real estate for 4 years now. You've seen a lot of people come and go. It's a massive turnover, particularly for new people. What do you see? What do you notice? Why do you think people give up?
I think, as of recently, I think a lot of people watch Selling Sunset.
All right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so I think they watch Selling Sunset and they sort of think it's something that it's not. There's no denying that it's just like running a business. You need to build your business. You need to constantly be working on your business to succeed.
Right.
And it's hard work, right? but it's also extremely rewarding, and it's amazing being able to have the flexibility to choose when you want to work.
So just on the rewarding, so when you go for a run, you get up in the morning and you run. I mean, I guess the reward's almost instant. As soon as you finish the run, you're feeling it, right? But in real estate, it can take a long time to get rewarded. How does that work? I mean,
yeah, and I suppose actually it comes back to that question you asked before. There's obviously a lag, right? You need to do the work.
A lag.
There's a lag
between
you can't, no matter what I do right now, I can't just get paid for selling a house. It's a long process.
Yeah.
But I mean, nothing good in life happens fast, right? And nothing with having it comes easy. So I've sort of got my head around that, and playing the long game with vendors and other agents has been a real big part of my career.
I'm just trying to think, young people watching this that are considering real estate, what would you say to them?
Definitely do your research before you start. If you have the opportunity to work with a team, definitely helps. And I would say have a good think about who you know in your database before you begin, because we all do have friends that want to sell.
Did you have a database when you started at 24?
I mean, I probably had a standard. I've got a really good group of friends from school, which are still my best mates.
Right.
And they do talk about that I'm in real estate, which is probably it's become sort of like the lifeline of my business.
Is that a deal breaker at a barbecue? Oh, as a real estate agent, does that change things? Or?
Well, I think there's two ways of going about it. I'll never just put the pressure on someone and try and get them to sell their house. But I mean, an example could be like when I'm in the office, I work really hard. But when I did my first Ironman, I joined a training group called Boost Coaching. And we used
Boost
coaching,
right?
Yeah, and we used to go on training rides. Start at Milford all the way out to South Head. There'll be 160 k's, and I would talk to people. Obviously, you get
whilst
to know,
you were riding.
Whilst we're riding,
right? Riding, yeah.
Okay. You get to know people quite well, right? Because you're stopping for whatever drinks and cokes and pies or whatever you want to keep you fueled for these long endurance rides, and just training for that Ironman alone, I actually, by mistake, I suppose, got 3 listings out of it. Because
Seriously?
These people just, wanted me to sell their house. And there's, I mean, I can say hand on heart, I was not trying. I looked at that Ironman as almost, not an escape, but just like a non-real estate event, right? It was more for me to challenge myself and get to that finish line. It wasn't by any means part of my prospecting plans.
So let's say I'm listening to you now. I'm watching what you're saying, and I'm going, well, I'm a real estate agent, and I go to barbecues and I do stuff, but people don't list with me. What is? Any idea why?
I think it's like in anything in life. It's how you can say stuff. It's all how you how you send the message.
Right.
I've never been sort of a pressure sort of agent. I've always been more relaxed about it. But I'm not scared to follow up at the same time as well, So I suppose, I just haven't made it. Yeah, I don't know.
Just my observations. I mean, I'm calling this capturing energy, but I would say that your energy is, people can see it, and maybe that's something that's just intrinsic in Ben Buchanan, right? They can see you're disciplined, and they want that sort of discipline in a real estate agent, I guess. There's a bit of trust there too, isn't there?
Yeah. So I think trust is huge, and playing the long game. It's like when I was in Gold Coast recently for the ARIC.
What's ARIC?
ARIC's the Australian conference.
Australian Real Estate Conference.
Real Estate Conference,
yep.
Yeah. So it's massive, and there's big speakers. They had Ryan Suhant, who's the $1 million listing, and they had Ryan Reynolds via Zoom on there. And I mean, a lot of those agents have common themes, right? But the thing that kept coming out of it was that, that they employ their agents based on energy, enthusiasm, and ethics.
Right.
So I've sort of
E's.
built my business around those 3 E's.
Right.
And it seems to have worked quite well, because you can have, you can have as much energy and enthusiasm in the world, but if you're ripping people off or not doing stuff right, it's always going to catch up with you.
There is that there is that perception with real estate agents, isn't there? There's like politicians, used car salespeople, and real estate agents.
Yeah, I mean, there is, I suppose. And in fact, if there is, that's great. And I've sort of taken advantage of that by being straight up with people. It's good that the bar can sometimes be considered low because it means that people can excel, and you can do really well, obviously.
That's cool. Oh, great. So what's a day in the life of Ben Buchanan?
It definitely changes a lot. As I mentioned, the run, it always begins with a run or a swim or a bike.
Every day?
Every single day.
7 days a week?
Yep, 7 days a week, unless I've got an event on or I'm unwell or something. But that's traditionally how I like to start my day.
5 o'clock?
5 a.m., yep. And then I head into the office because I find that the successful people in real estate do spend lots of time in the office because one thing leads to another. But look, it depends what I've got on. If I've got listings, then I'll be doing the photos, be doing the videos, I'll be doing the copy, all the marketing material for those listings. But sometimes you have quieter days, and that's where I think it really matters.
Right.
So that's when you've got to double down and you need to call people you've met before.
Right.
So you call people you've sold houses to. You can call people that you have met at the open homes, people that you've done appraisals for. So it really varies, and that's the exciting thing about it. They say, get better work stories. Well, real estate certainly offers that. Yeah.
So I'm new in real estate. I haven't done it before. I have got a database. I've got my license. I've got my laptop. I've got my phone, and I've got my car. I've got a desk. I've decided where I'm going. Okay, I wake up in the morning. Maybe I don't wake up at 5, but I'm at work, whatever time, at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
What do you do? Well, that's the question. What's the magic bullet?
Yeah. But what do you do in that situation? I haven't got it. I haven't done open homes.
Yeah.
Potentially, I'm not even part of a team. I mean, that's a challenge, right? So.
Yeah. And when I spoke before about being in a team, you actually don't necessarily have to. There's other avenues, right? I've got listings on at the moment, and we have young agents, new agents in the office. They're more than welcome to come and help me with my open homes.
Right.
And to answer your question, what do? You do real estate activity.
Okay.
So you get out there, whether you drop newsletters off, whether you call people
right.
You just do something real estate related.
Okay.
Whether it's working with a buyer, something real estate related, because that thing you do that's real estate related is going to lead to another thing that's real estate related, and then another thing, and then another thing, and then it's going to start snowballing.
What do you talk about branding? Ben Buchanan, the brand. Is that a thing?
Totally.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we all know the big brands that we trust. We can name them, right?
So the actual real estate agencies. But what about you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because it's extremely important, and it was another theme that was brought up at ARIC constantly: brand and expand. People like that. They want trust, and they want to go to what they trust in life. So in real estate, you need multiple things, but one of them is definitely a brand. I brand myself as experience and energy.
Okay, so that rings a bell. That's a good idea. Who came up with that? But how? So you've got a brand, you've got a logo, experience and energy. But what is the Ben Buchanan brand? What does it mean? What is it?
The Ben Buchanan brand is it is energy.
Yeah,
but it's also long game.
Okay,
and it's also extremely hard work in the background to get vendors the best price.
So energy, I think we've got a really good capture of that. The long game. So you've talked about the long game, and that's interesting. In a world where we all want instant gratification, takeaways are a lot more popular than people don't cook their own meals these days.
Yeah.
And as we talked about before, in real estate, you have to do a lot of work before you actually, start to get the benefits. But what do you mean by the words "the long game"?
I mean the long game by doing things right. So not, I had to say, but like ripping someone off.
Okay.
That makes me feel uneasy.
So would that be selling, encouraging a buyer to buy a house that's not right for them? Is that the sort of thing you mean?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So I've always thought from the beginning that if you do that sort of thing, it's always going to catch up with you.
Right.
Also, not burning bridges. being nice to vendors, being nice to buyers, because they do, if they miss out, they do come back to your open homes. Also being nice to other agents and building respect and respecting them, because the reality is you may need to do a listing with them one day.
So that's a really interesting thing. So, people that are outside of real estate might think, look, it's a dog-eat-dog world. You sort of be careful, you walk around holding stuff. Is that not the way
I haven't found the industry to be like that. But then again, I tend to choose who I surround myself with. Right. And I am extremely grateful for the office environment. And, everyone's different in the Grayland office, but everyone offers they offer different things. And I believe we are quite a cool office that gets stuff done.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? That relationship with other agents. I don't know if people getting into real estate understand that that's so important, right? Work together.
Yeah, because it becomes once again about about the word of mouth thing. I've got great relationships with agents in agents in Mission Bay.
Right.
They know people. They know people that live in Grayland. They know people that live in Point Chev. So I like to think that if I'm nice to them and I give listings on that side of town to them, that it will be reciprocated, and it is reciprocated, which is great.
Here's a question that's a typical podcast question that I've got here. What's the most challenging thing you've found in real estate since you've started?
I'm going to say, because when I started in 2020, whenever it was, the market was great. And I'm not going to flip this and say that it's challenging just because of the way the market is. But when the market's really hot, you can take on listings that are not considered desirable listings, and they're still going to sell.
Right.
And you're still going to get a decent payday, right? And it's still going to be a good campaign. However, what's happening recently is the way the market is, if you're not on the same page as the vendor from day one, the chances of you selling that listing go down significantly.
When you mean the same page, what do you mean?
So I'm talking about, why they want to sell and the price that you've appraised the property at. So if you're right up here for the appraisal, but the property's only worth here, you're not going to get that deal done. So the challenge in that is walking away from something that you thought was good, but you're actually going to potentially end up not selling that property and just working for free, which is happening all around Auckland at the moment, right? So that's what the challenge has been.
So, it would be a challenge, isn't it? So let's say someone's going to sell their house. They get 3 agents from 3 different brands in. One agent says it's worth this. One agent says it's worth that. One agent says it's worth that. And let's say the lowest agent may well be the realistic, but do you list with the highest agent? Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
That does happen. But I mean, I'm more meaning like even if it's just you that gets the appraisal, and if the vendor's just not in the zone to be selling their property for whatever reason, then the challenge is potentially walking away.
Yeah.
And the more successful you get, fortunately, the more you can walk away from things.
Right. It's interesting, isn't it? We all want what we can't have, what's hardest to get. And I guess if you look like you'll take the listing at any cost, then it's not that desirable.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story once about that lady that would walk over broken glass for a listing.
Yes, that was a rookie agent that missed out on a listing, which wasn't a very good one, a general agency. And she said, and he gave it to somebody else, and she said,
"Don't want to hear that, right?"
No, she said, "Oh, look, I would have walked over broken glass for your listing," and he sort of realised, well, it's pretty clear why he didn't get it.
Yeah.
Lovely lady, but just wasn't for her, right?
Yeah.
So, cool. So, what about technology in real estate? I mean, you've been in 4 years. What sort of technology do you use?
So I mean, technology-wise and marketing-wise, I do everything.
Do you?
So yeah, I do. I'm a big believer in marketing, and technology comes into that, right? So I mean, my marketing plans, I've got the best Trade Me, the best realestate.co. There's you go on the newspaper as well, but I mean, you're also got to be on social media.
Okay.
So
what ones do you use?
Instagram and Facebook.
And how often would you post on those?
As well as AIM as well.
Right.
I post at least a couple times a week, mainly with a new listing. And then what I'll do is I'll send that listing through Facebook, it'll be targeted to a specific group of people, and also to people that have been through our open homes before. There's lots of smart technology now.
So, Ben, if you didn't have a listing, would you still be posting twice a week?
Yeah, I would. Yep.
What sort of things would you post?
Even stuff like I caught up with the auctioneer recently and had a coffee. So I got the barista to take a video of us just having a coffee there, catching up with the auctioneer. Simple as that. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
What things has real estate? So you've been doing it 4 years. What's it enabled you to do?
It's enabled me to really take control of my life. So when I was an engineer, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a great job and I really enjoyed it, but we still needed to work to a roster.
Okay.
With this job, in real estate, if I want to work till 11 p.m. at night, I can. At the same time, if I want to have a half day to spend time with my partner or my family, we'll go for a run. I can. Right. So it's very much like running a business. And if you've got the right mindset for it, it's super flexible and rewarding.
Are you doing anything interesting soon as far as flexibility is concerned?
Oh, thanks for asking. Yeah, I'm actually I've got a big trip to Europe planned, which I'm really excited for.
Fantastic. How long are you away for?
I think it's 6 or 7 weeks.
Wow.
Which is good. And I think we were discussing this morning about how important time off actually is.
Right.
Because you charge your batteries right and you come back refreshed and you're back into it rather than just burning out and not playing the long game.
So that's a lifestyle, so a balance. Have you been on a trip like this before? Have you taken other trips?
I mean, I've travelled very, very well, fortunately.
Before real estate or during real estate?
Before real estate and during real estate, actually, especially within New Zealand because I got the staff travel. So I would often travel with my friends and with my family, which I'm very grateful for. But I've never been to Europe.
Is that right?
So, yeah. I mean, hopefully I'll be back.
And you're into your cars. You're going to do something in a car, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'm renting my dream car to drive on my autobahns and hopefully give my partner a bit of a fright.
Gosh, make sure you come back.
Yeah.
What sort of car is it?
It's a Porsche GT3. So I really love Porsches, and it comes back to my engineering.
Okay.
I love the engineering involved in it and how it's balanced and the sort of track times that it produces, even though it's only a 4-litre engine.
Really? Yeah. So now I'm thinking, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, wow, this guy's loaded. He's done financially. You don't have to give numbers, but you're doing okay. It's enabled you to buy. I think you've bought a house, didn't you? Yeah,
I've got a house with my partner in Point Chev, which I'm grateful for as well. And
when did you buy that? How long?
I think we bought it about 1.5 years ago.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, which is hopefully a good time to be buying.
Yeah, amazing.
Touch wood. But
so you bought a house and you can afford to take this trip. So
no, it has been. I mean, it's been very, very rewarding for me financially and the motivation. I mean, it comes back to what you asked before. Leaving engineering, it sort of gave me a drive to want to earn more than I had done in my previous job. So I sort of, in one way or another, made it work to exceed what I was earning there.
Okay. Right. So that was a goal, was it?
That was a goal. Yeah. Absolutely. One of my goals.
Have you got any goals at the moment that you're working towards?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Lots of, I always have goals.
Yeah.
Right. There's always
you want to share one or two of them, or?
Yeah. I mean, another Ironman's definitely on the cards.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to pick one, whether I'd like to do one in Canada potentially.
Right.
Where my uncle lives. But there's lots of stuff happening.
And in real estate, I mean, is there anything there that's where does Ben Buchanan go? Is that something that you?
Where does Ben Buchanan go? It's been talked about a lot recently, especially with with my partner and trying to work out what we're doing. There's multiple options. I did work with Matt and Ryan, and I have also worked with a lovely lady called Deb Bull. So we were a partnership for around 2 years,
right,
and we're doing extremely well.
Yes.
But she wanted a change in pace, so now she's actually the admin at the Ipsum office.
Right. Okay.
So she was an amazing lady and a very good real estate agent. But what that's done is we've built this database now and this pipeline.
Yes.
And I've got to decide if I want to take on an associate,
right,
expand my team,
or
partner up with someone. But on the flip side, Bath and Thompson is an amazing beast and a great well-oiled machine. And because they are so big, opportunities come up.
Right.
And they've got these leadership groups which I'm involved in. So branch management is on the cards potentially as well,
Wow.
Or an assistant manager. There's lots of jobs within the company that they can offer you due to being so big and all these changes happening. So
you could potentially continue to keep selling long term, or you could potentially move away from selling and move into a leadership role.
Yeah, I suppose like you did yourself, the beauty of real estate being so broad is there's so many options, but I just got to work out exactly what I want to do and time it right. So it's an exciting time actually at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you've built a brand, and do you get to the stage where people just out of the blue, someone will ring you up and say, "Hey Ben, I've got a house in Point Chev. I'd like to sell it through you." Does that happen to you?
It does. Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, probably I'm going to say 7 times out of 10 there is a tie. It's, hey, I met you here,
Right.
or I saw you on the billboard.
Really?
Or
Okay.
So with billboards, for example, they see you without even realizing subconsciously every single day, right?
Right.
So they probably would have seen me somewhere for them to make that phone call.
Right.
But totally, I do get those phone calls.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Or it'll be, hey, you sold Amy's house, or you sold Fiona's house. You did a great job. We'd love to have you around. That's probably more the way it goes down. But they are definitely good phone calls to get, and I've taken a few years to get there.
So well, you're only 4 years. It's great. It's amazing. But so we're selling in real estate. We're really not selling houses because people don't pay us for the house. They pay us for our service, right?
Yeah.
What sort of service do you give that's better than other people's service, for argument's sake?
I listen. I really listen to my clients.
Right.
I believe the best salespeople in the world do just listen and find a solution for your client's problems. That's pretty broad, right? But if you can really connect with them on a different level and hear what they're actually asking for, whether they're a buyer or a vendor,
right,
and offer that, you're going to do really well.
Isn't that amazing that you say listening, you're getting paid to listen?
Yeah.
And you think that's a big difference? You think a lot of agents don't do that?
No, a lot of agents say too much.
Okay.
Yeah, they absolutely say too much. And they often talk around and they'll talk the vendor out of listing with them rather than actually listing with them.
So back to the service. I interrupted you there, but so listening is a big thing. That's a big service thing for Ben Buchanan. Is there anything else you can think of that you offer as far as service is concerned?
Yeah, I mean it's a sales is a transfer of energy.
Okay.
So it all comes down to how pleasant the interaction is that you've had with that person, and how much enthusiasm and energy you show towards their goal, basically, which is selling their house for the best price.
Right. And is there times that you have to be kind of firm with what you're talking about? For instance, price, for example, or let's say cutting your fees. Okay, let's say cutting your fees. So, yeah, how do you handle a challenge like that? So, Ben, I can list my house with another agency and they're going to pay all the commission and they're going to pay all the marketing. Why should I list with you? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, as soon as you know what you offer and your value, then you sort of become a lot more confident to answer those sort of questions.
Right.
So, cutting a fee, I'd say, saying something like a great house with a bad agent is a very expensive mistake to make.
Okay.
I'd show them why they're choosing me.
Right.
If our fee is higher, I would show examples of what you're getting. You're getting the Bath and Thompson network, for example. You're getting my associate, or you're getting a team. There's things that you can show vendors, and listing with the cheapest agent definitely isn't the way to go.
Right.
If they can't negotiate their own fee, then you definitely don't want them negotiating, potentially millions of dollars of your what's likely your biggest asset.
Have you been in a situation where, let's say it's a sale and purchase, and someone's made an offer, it's in writing, you've gone to the vendor, the vendor will take a certain amount. Let's say it's 1.5. Have you ever gone back and got more? Is that you have done that? Is that ethical? Have you done it? How would you handle something like that? Let's say someone's prepared to pay more than the vendor's minimum expectation.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's an interesting subject, but at the end of the day, we do work for the vendors, so it's totally about the vendor. Buyers can make their own decision what the property's worth, but it's our job to get the vendor the absolute best price. And what you're sort of talking about is often when there's a multi-offer situation.
What's a multi-offer?
A multi-offer is when you've got two offers and they basically go into an envelope, or more. Sorry, you could have as many offers as there is, but they go into an envelope and the buyers are told to put the absolute best foot forward to the vendor. And, it's not necessarily just about the price. Obviously, that's the main component, but it's also about the conditions and the settlement date. And the vendor can choose to accept one, or they can choose to decline all offers or negotiate with one of those offers.
Okay.
And they do often go above the price because they don't know whether the second offer is going to be, $1,000 above or $1,000 below. You just don't know.
So I'm a buyer and I'm giving you an offer in writing. And I'm saying, well, that's my best offer. What are you going to say to me?
Well, I'm going to obviously take the offer.
Right.
But I mean, by the time I even get that offer, the buyers, they're going to be quite educated because I'm going to have sent them sales in the area.
Recent sales.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not just hey, I think this property's worth this. It's going to be more of a educated offer if you're working with me. Because I'm going to say, hey, that one at number 30 sold for this, or that 2 streets across sold for this, but it's got an extra bedroom.
Right.
So I like to sort of educate my buyers quite a bit before they actually go to paper.
Right.
But then, it becomes a negotiation.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then you take that offer to the vendor, and how does that work? You're presenting an offer to the vendor. It's let's say it's the first offer.
Yeah.
Let's say it's 1.5, and the vendor was hoping for, let's say, I know 2 million or 1.9 or something like that. How does that conversation work?
Well, we legally need to present all offers. So
right.
And it's part of our job to take those offers.
Yeah.
But like I said, hopefully we don't get too many that are super low.
Yeah, sure.
And you can sort of overcome that objection by providing recent sales to buyers. But you got to present it, and you can say stuff to the buyers like, hey, you might want to start thinking about your second offer.
Okay.
If it's really low, have you thought about what your second offer is going to be? So you've already started the thinking process with that buyer,
right,
before you've even presented the offer to the vendor,
right?
Which is it's quite interesting. It becomes it is like quite such psychological, the whole negotiation process. But you just want to get a counter offer from the vendor and get them engaged and hopefully get a deal done.
Seal the deal. Very good. Can you remember your first sale?
So my first sale was was obviously in my first year when I was working with lots of buyers. And although it's a lot of fun, it can be quite heartbreaking as well.
Right.
Because you're taking a buyer to another person's listing, and then they'll often go to auctions, and you could often be the second bidder, the underbidder. So you don't win the
bridesmaid.
Auction. Yeah, which means you get nothing essentially. You walk away with a buyer that's not very happy because they missed out on the house, and you need to find them something else. So I probably had a situation where that problem occurred probably five or six times to me in a row. And I was thinking, what's going on? What is this?
Yeah.
And then I eventually sold them a house. I believe it was in Te Atatu South. Yeah.
So 5 or 6 times, and you haven't been paid. You haven't made a commission.
That's right.
And you keep on going back.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is doing builders reports and taking family members through. So it's a lot of time you have invested in it.
What kept you going? I would say there'd be possibly a lot of agents that would just pull out.
Well, it becomes more about getting across that finish line, especially when 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 you've come that far, it becomes even more sweeter once you've got it done, right?
So as an analogy to running there, crossing is that what do you visualize that sometimes?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's in the last 500 meters in any endurance event, your adrenaline kicks in and you get to that finish line. Same sort of thing with selling houses.
Right.
And it's, very rewarding once you get it done.
But it's tough, right? And so there's that toughness you've got in you from your running that you've brought into the industry.
Absolutely.
And that's a point of difference.
Resilience is
right.
what I'd call it, and determination. Yeah.
That's really cool. What about your first listing?
First listing, I mean, like my first sale, when you start out, you can't be picky with what you take, right? You're not listing $3 million houses in Grayland or Westmere when in your first, year or whatever it is. But I believe the listing was probably maybe 8 or 9 months in, and I did it with my colleague Matt, who I was his associate at the time, and it was actually in Mangere East.
Okay, and you work in Grey Lynn.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
so
but you can do that.
You can do that. Obviously, the company's non-franchise and it allows for that, which is great. And I took the listing out in Mangere East, and it was quite funny because it was lovely. It was a corner site villa, 946 square meters, I think. So it was a good property. It was always going to sell well, but we got there and we did the video and the photos, which was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. But when we put the drone up, the guy that was flying it the two things that went wrong. It was quite close to the airport, so it was a no-fly zone.
Okay.
So we had to call up to get approval to put this drone up because obviously you're quite close to the aircraft. And the second thing was around that area there's a few unruly people, and because of the way we were dressed, we could have been perceived as being police detectives.
Okay.
So he said, Ben,
you do look a bit like a police detective. Look at you. You got the haircut there.
I blue pants on today. So he basically said, Ben, can you please stand with me, and I'm going to do this really quick. So
who said that?
The guy that was flying, the photographer, was flying the drone. So he took the drone up and went, done. And sure enough, there were people thinking that we were, spying on their whatever they were doing. I don't know. And yelling out at us.
Right. Okay.
Thinking we were cops. Basically,
but you got away with it.
We got away with it and got the house sold, and it was an amazing auction. I think I had 4 or 5 people there. Back when the market was really, really hot, and we sold the house way above the reserve.
So you listed a house in Mangere East, and you want to. How do you? But you've listed in Point Chev, which is where you live. So how do you establish your brand in Point Chev? How did that happen?
So it's no one magic bullet, right? It's a multitude of things. It's referrals from clients that you already know. It's monthly letterbox drops in a very targeted area.
Okay.
It's social media posts. It's NZ Herald ads.
Right.
It's billboards. It's talking with people in the area that I already know. It's there's a lot of stuff that goes into it in the background to get known as the go-to.
Do you door knock? Have you ever door knocked?
Yes. I'm a big believer in give.
Right.
In most things in life.
Okay.
So I will never knock on a door without something to give.
Okay.
And when I say that, I mean if I have a listing, then of course I'm going to meet the neighbours. That's a great opportunity.
Right.
So I'm going to list a house, and I'll introduce myself to the neighbours, basically 10 to the left, 10 to the right, and 20 on the other side of the street.
You'll knock on the door. What did you say?
Knock on the door and say, hi, I'm Ben Buchanan from Bath and Thompson. Obviously, I've just listed the house because the sign will often be up. Here's a flyer. If you'd like any further information, can I take your email? Or, would you like to know the sale price? I'll get their number. If not, you're welcome to come through for the open home. This is the time. You can say stuff like, if someone parks across the driveway, feel free to give me a call.
Cool.
Once again, you're helping people, you're giving. So
you're
that's
giving.
What you've got to make it about.
Can you do that if you haven't got a listing?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? Okay.
Totally can. Yeah. And in fact,
an example.
It's a great opportunity. If someone lists a property, you just got to be a bit careful about how you word it. But of course, they're humans, they're people, right? They have houses. You can tell them there's a house for sale down the road. Doesn't even matter if it's not with your agency. And this is what this job's about. It's about connecting with people and helping them achieve their property goals.
And what would you say if it was not your listing and you were
Well, you just introduce yourself and you say, look, there's a house for sale that goes to auction on this day. Would you like to know the sale price? Or not even that. You could just say, hey, there's a house for sale down the road, and chat about their property goals. And like I said at the start of this conversation, the cool thing about real estate is the more real estate activity you do, it leads to another thing and then another thing. And then they know someone that wants to sell.
Right.
Or they have a friend, that wants to buy. In fact, that's what Deb used to say. So when Deb and I were in a partnership, she'd often say, would you like to know the sale result? Or if you have any friends that want to get into the area, please tell them about this house. And why that's good is because you're helping them so that they're interested.
Yeah.
But we're also seen as working hard for our vendor. Sure, you could argue they're going to see the sign.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Well, hopefully they do, because that's part of the plan as well. But they're also going to be thinking, when we sell our house, these guys are meeting all the neighbours. They want us to tell our friends, who are these people? It's great, So that's the whole the mindset around it.
Wow. No, cool. So you've worked. We'll probably wrap this up fairly soon. A couple more questions though. So you've worked with Matt and Ryan. You've done some work with Matt, and you did some work with Deb. Do you think there's a space for people to work alone, or is it just a personal thing that you want to be? Do you think you'll be working in another partnership, or is there any sort of rhyme or reason?
It's what I'm thinking about at the moment. Who do I want to work with? And I think it's probably one of the most important things is finding your right fit.
Do you think you should work with someone?
Not necessarily. I think it depends on where it is and what property it is.
But that works for you, does it?
It does work for me, yeah. So Experience and Energy with Deb was great because, I was a young, energetic guy in my 20s, and she was a 50-year-old lady. So sometimes, she'd be the lead agent and I'd be the co-agent, and I would still get the phone call.
Right.
Because they might have, I don't know why, but they might have felt like talking to me, but then likewise, I'd be the lead and she'd be the co, and should get the call. So I like to say that working with someone makes buyers feel more comfortable. It also means we cover more bases with buyers, but also the vendors. So we'd go and do an appraisal presentation, and I would see that both the vendors would just be looking at me the whole time. But then sometimes I would see that they'd both be looking at Deb. So it's almost like a toolkit where, you can say, hey, Deb, I think they like you better. You do the appraisal.
Okay.
Or Ben, you take this one because they want to talk about this, or that they seem to be gelling with you more. So yes, you have the commissions, but the idea is you do twice as many listings, twice as many databases, twice as many networks. So you end up just doing more. And
it's not quite as lonely, I guess, too.
That's another factor, totally.
Right. And, so obviously you and Deb, there's an obvious difference there just looking at you. But when you work with Matt, I mean, he's older as well, but he's not as, he's closer to your age than Deb is, and you're both male. So how did that work?
Well, that works well as well because, we offer different stuff and we have different knowledge.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be male and female. It's even the age difference between Matt and I. You got to think even that covers a broad range of buyers or vendors. So working with Matt works really well as well for us.
Do you think in a partnership there should be some differences? You don't want two people the same?
No, I think I totally feel that way. But I also think it's, for a vendor's point of view, if you can get two, it's better than getting one. You're paying the same fee. You're getting two agents.
Nice. Do you love your job?
I absolutely love my job.
Do you?
Yep.
What is it? Why do you love it?
Well, it's basically what we've talked about this whole session. It's enabled me to have the flexibility to basically claw back my life, and rather than working for an hourly rate, I can choose when I want to work. I can use all this energy that I've got to channel into it, and set huge goals, and just challenge myself and excel basically. And whilst running my own business, it provides a great platform to do that. Great.
And it sounds like the income's sort of unlimited.
Yes. Well, that's another appealing thing to me, knowing that you're not capped. You can, the sky's the world. Depends on how hard you want to work and push it.
Two more questions. Okay. So just to wrap up. So just if you're young, let's say you're young or you're not so young, it doesn't really matter about your age, but you're considering you're considering real estate, what would you say to those people? Should I give it a go? Should I give it a go or not? What would you say to those people?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a great thing to give a go. But when I say give it a go, like, you've got to go all in. So you can't work part-time and be a part-time real estate agent. You need to really focus on it and make it your absolute priority. And that may mean...
So not doing a part-time job?
No, not at all. You need to be really focused on it. And that may mean not having a day off in a year.
Right.
For the first year to really get things going.
Throw yourself at it.
I also think that having a career beforehand, just for the networking point of view and your life experience, helps as well.
Yep.
That helps build trust, that you know what you're doing when it comes to selling people's biggest assets.
Right.
And getting the best result, right? The premium price.
And the last question is, I've been in real estate. Let's say I've been in this for 5 years, 10 years or something like that, and I'm just plateauing. It's tough. I can't seem to get ahead. Any words that you could give those people?
Yeah, I mean, we see that, right? We see that with agents all the time. They need to reassess their why, and it comes down to, you've got to have that focus. What's your focus? Where are you going? And often it's not, I'm just going to go from here to where I want to be. It does looks like this. Sometimes It might even seem a little bit down, but as long as you're moving in the right direction.
So you'd focus on where you're going.
Where you're going, and that may mean where you want to be in the next 10 years. These guys need to not reinvent themselves, but they need to find their purpose. And their purpose can be totally up to them. If it's a brand new Ferrari or Porsche, that's totally fine. But if it's, selling 20 houses and doing nothing, that's cool. If it's a holiday to Hawaii, that's great. People, they need to find what gets them going, essentially.
That finish line.
It comes back to the finish line.
Right. So just have that finish line that whatever it is, particular for you. Yeah. Great. No more questions. Anything else you wanted to mention?
No, it's been fun. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see where this podcast goes and the improvements. And
great.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Ben. Cheers.
Awesome.